Shalom, everyone. So appropriate on Erev Pesach to talk about the third paragraph of the Shema and what its real meaning is. So Rabbi Melamed gives a very interesting and short historical view of what happened. The Egyptian kingdom, which enslaved Israel, and at that time they were called the Hebrews, was essentially the kingdom of materialism. Historical research verifies this. Among all the ancient nations, no culture was more materialistic than the Egyptian culture. The Egyptians denied the existence of soul and did not believe in the afterlife. Only the human body and material objects were of importance to them. They therefore invested enormous efforts into mummifying their dead and preserving their bodies. And I can add, besides that, they also added food, and they found hummus beans or garbanzo beans that can still be used today after more than 3,000 years, which is incredible. Even the great pyramids are none other than tombs for their bodies. Their immoral, cultural worked in conjunction with their beliefs, the main purpose being to satisfy bodily urges. As Chazal tells, no other country was more absorbed in lust than Egypt. That's in Torah Kohanim, which is the halachic midrash on Leviticus. The nation of Israel represented the exact opposite, its main objective being spiritual aspirations. So, because they were so physical, they enslaved us to help them with whatever they wanted as material. And unfortunately, many other nations after that followed the same idea. And the Jewish idea of servitude is I'm an Eved Hashem. I'm not an Eved to the Pharaoh. I'm not a slave or servant of anybody else. All the things that I do in my life are solely for the purpose of serving Hashem. So even jogging or running a marathon or eating an amazing large steak, we don't do it because we want to enjoy the physical part of it. We do it in order for us to have more pleasure in this world and be able to worship Hashem more carefully and more vehemently. The materialistic Egyptian nation ruled over Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, and enslaved the Jewish people in excruciating physical labor. It seemed that the great spirit that began to appear with our forefathers would not rise again. The material had prevailed over the spiritual until the King of Kings himself appeared in his glory and freed us from Egypt. So just one more comment about that is that the rabbis actually accuse some of the Hebrews for moving in with the Egyptians instead of staying only in Goshen. It says, "Vatimale haaretz otam," that the land was filled of them. And it's not in every country that happens like that, but when you start going to their movies and their circuses and their theaters and whatever other cultural events they have, they are doing it with even unknowingly in order to distract you from what your real purpose is in this world. And so even during the time of the Greeks and Romans, yes, they were bad, but the rules that they made were to beautify the body, to make sure that that the body was the most important thing. That's why they forbade us from having circumcision, because apparently that was hurting our physical beauty and all kinds of other stuff. And that's exactly what Egypt was doing. And since they were the first, and Hashem promised us that He will take us out of Egypt, and that's why we celebrate Passover and other things. By taking us out of Egypt, Hashem proved to the world for the first time the ultimate power of spirituality and moral values. The Exodus illustrates the victory of spirituality over materialism. As long as materialism tries to enslave spirituality, in the end, spirituality will free itself from its chains. Just like Israel left Egypt triumphantly and in great wealth, so will every battle between the spiritual and the material ultimately and victoriously for spirituality. So I made a comment last week when we were learning with Rabbi Herzfeld about Yetziat Mitzrayim, about the Exodus, that it says a very strange verse that Moshe and Aaron are supposed to go to the people of Israel and command not only the Pharaoh to let our people go, but also to command the Hebrews that they must go out of Egypt. And not all of them listened according to the Midrash. According to the Midrash, only a fifth listened, and everybody else was either chancing it, or they really believed in Hashem, and that's why they smeared the blood on the doorpost. But either way, the Egyptian culture was so overwhelming and so empowering that people started going to those occasions, especially the cultural ones, and they believed in them. I don't know if the rabbis ever included the story about Jacob, which is mentioned in the end of Genesis, about him being embalmed and put in a coffin, which is sort of against it's definitely against our practice today. We don't embalm anybody unless the government tells us to. And just a very quick story, Rabbi Brander, who was the rabbi in Boca Raton when I was there, there was a woman who came from Mexico to be for her grandson's bar mitzvah. Unfortunately, the bar mitzvah was canceled because she died during that week leading up to the bar mitzvah. And so he found out that the law in Mexico is that if you're bringing a body from outside of the country, you must embalm it. So he made sure that all 7 jars of the liquid that was supposed to be with the body was actually in the coffin, and that's how it was buried. And he personally went to Mexico, wherever that was, in order to ensure that they buried it in that way. So embalming is not a Jewish thing because it talks about making the body more important than anything else. But there's still times, even today, it doesn't matter if it's in America or Canada or Britain or France or other places, that Jewish people have a very good physical opportunities. We have to remember that the most important thing is the spirituality. And I'll just say that, in my opinion, instead of saying American Jews, we should say Jewish Americans. And that's just related to this idea that spirituality comes before the materialism that is discussed in Egypt. Last paragraph on this page. And just as the nation of Israel, who gave the world Torah and ethics, was freed from the material bondage of the Egyptian empire, so too each individual of Israel must free themselves from the chains of materialism in order to discover spirituality and to connect to the master of the world by performing mitzvot. The word Egypt in Hebrew, Mitzrayim, it comes from the word Mitzarim, which are boundaries and constrictions. And because we are free-spirited, or supposed to be free-spirited, we have to grow out of that box. We have to grow out of that comfort zone. We have to understand that by remembering the Exodus of Egypt, we are basically saying, Hashem, you tell us what to do, and we will be free by doing it. And that's why we say in the Haggadah, L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim b'niyah, we're not going to be able to build it. It has to come either from Hashem or from the people who are living there right now. But we are saying that this is our goal. This is our final goal in order to increase our spirituality and discover it in the right way. Last but not least, therefore, we are commanded to remember the Exodus every day and every night. In doing so, we recall Israel's great moral and spiritual calling, thereby freeing ourselves from the chains of materialism to embrace eternal divine truths. So wishing you all a very happy Pesach, a very kosher Pesach, and we will pick up again on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. your time.
Thank you so much. Chag Sameach.
Sameach.
Good Pesach. Thank you.